Checkout tracking by the NPD Group brings you a receipt collecting system that gathers data anonymously through technology we created, providing your businesses with answers.
So Jason is the co-founder of Execution Labs, and I believe what's unique about him, besides the fact that he's a well-known person in gaming industry, one of the best-known people in gaming industry, some people say, is that he's going to talk about the discrepancy between being an artist and being a sellout, and there I'm quoting Jason. But as all of you know, somebody who writes games, there are two parts of this person's personality that need to be present in one way or another. It's an artist, and it's really an entrepreneur, a business person. And so, without further ado, Jason is going to talk about this, about those two relationships, not only inside a person, between an artist and an entrepreneur, but also how he at Execution Labs and his partners are preparing people who are essentially artists for, I should say, being sellouts. No, I'm joking, not really.
I got the mic.
Okay, all right, have fun.
All right. Thank you, Igor. All right, so I'm the co-founder of Execution Labs. It is an accelerator and seed fund based in Canada, but we actually source deals around the world. So this talk has nothing to do with Canada or the investment landscape of Canada. We've been around about 2.5 years, and we've done about 20 deals. So actually one of the more active investors in the game space. We invest in game companies making games, not tech, not services, nothing else. We actually invest in game companies. And we're quite diversified. I mean, Shelley before was talking about really being mobile focused, whereas we're quite diverse, and as long as the business case makes sense and the team is exciting and the project is cool, you know, we're open, or you're open to investment. So as Igor kind of hinted to, this talk is a bit about maybe more philosophical, a little bit different than some of the sessions earlier today, which really sort of went into kind of investing 101 or pitching 101, fundraising efforts, and talking a bit about this sort of challenge in the identity of a lot of the game developers that we work with. And this, most of you should know, is Phil Fish, famous for both making Fez as well as being the star of Indie Game the Movie, and to me really kind of personifies this notion of the starving artist, the person who suffers to create their masterpiece, and that was well documented in the movie. And we certainly see this from developers from all over the world, where they have this sense of you know, they really want to do something meaningful, and in order to do that, they need to suffer and sort of take on this you know, starving artist personality. But at the same time, you know, we're also businesses, and there is the sense that, you know, we have to also be entrepreneurs and go out there and get funding, you know, generate revenue, pay the bills, and so on. And we do see this tension between this kind of artist mode as well as the entrepreneurial mode, and certainly in a lot of the developers we look at, the tendency, as you would imagine, leans much more so towards the artist as opposed to the entrepreneur. And so this is, you know, we'll talk a little bit about this and sort of parse that tension. And so I find it useful to kind of define what I mean by indies or independent. We often, you know, throw around this term indie, independent studio, and so on, and everyone kind of sees it potentially as a slightly different thing. So I'll just take a moment to define it how we see it. So here's sort of quadrants with two spectrums. One is the degree of creative freedom, and the other one is the degree of legal freedom. So, you know, to what extent do you work on the ideas, your own ideas, your own IP that you own and control, and so on. And then to what extent do you have legal independence, meaning you are a standalone company that you own and control. And so obviously enough, indies would go in this quadrant, which means they have creative freedom, they're working on their own IP, their own ideas, and they have legal independence or legal freedom in that they're their own, you know, company. They're not on the stock market, they're not a subsidiary or anything like that. Down here would be work for hire studios or outsource studios, in that they have legal independence. They're a small company in China that's doing art outsourcing, but they don't have creative freedom because they're told to make 10 tanks or work on these levels or do outsource work. So they don't have creative freedom. So I don't define them as indies in this sense. Over here would be internal studios at publishers or wholly owned studios. So no creative freedom because you're told to make the 7th Assassin's Creed and just get to it. And you have no legal independence in that you're an internal studio or a wholly owned subsidiary studio of Activision or Ubisoft or EA or whatever the case may be. And then up here is somewhat more rare, Skunkworks or kind of the R&D division, where let's say the boss gives you an Oculus Rift and says go off for 6 months and hide in the closet and come up with crazy stuff. So you have creative freedom in that you've just been told to go do crazy things, and you're not sort of bound by existing franchises, but you don't have the legal independence in that you're still the R&D division or division within one of the big existing companies. And so it should be obvious enough then, as investors, we want to invest in indies or independent studios who have creative freedom and legal freedom or legal independence. There's no sort of definition here in terms of are they making money or not making money? Is it pixel graphics or platformers? Is it mobile or not mobile or Steam or not? Like or how big's the team? This is, to me, is really the core definition of what indie is. But we can explode that further. So if we take indies and further define it, it's, again, a quadrant. What is the extent of their commercial intent? Meaning, are they actually making a product that's going to go into the market and hopefully generate revenue? And impact is kind of a catch-all term to say, to what extent are they doing something innovative? Are they doing something meaningful? Are they trying to create content with some sort of impact or vision? And so I would call the folks up there independent entrepreneurs, meaning they have the creative and legal freedom or independence. They're trying to do something innovative, trying to do something with meaning, but they're doing that in the context of commercial intent. They actually want to generate revenue and put the product out in the market. Down here would be the stereotypical starving artists, in that they're trying to do something meaningful, but they don't have commercial intent. And in some cases, they're actively, they don't want to make money, and they sort of have that starving artist, mentality, but doing something interesting and innovative. Folks down here are just lost, in that they have no commercial intent, and they're not doing anything that's particularly interesting or innovative or meaningful. This could be hobbyists, it could be students, it could be folks that are just getting started out, so they haven't quite found their way yet. And then up here would be the sellouts, in that they're doing something with commercial intent, but it doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have impact. So I would put all the Clash of Clans clones up there, all the Candy Crush, Match 3 developers are there. So they have creative freedom. They've chosen to do, Match 3 with zombies. They have legal independence. They want to make money, but what they're doing is not particularly impactful or interesting. And so often we sort of view it as binary, meaning you're either a starving artist doing something innovative but with no commercial potential, or you're a sellout in that you're making, your zombie Candy Crush clone, and maybe you make money, but you really are not doing anything innovative. And so, I view it more nuanced than that. And again, it should be obvious enough in terms of investment targets. It's the independent entrepreneurs that are the ones that we want to invest in, right? That have that commercial intent, are business driven, but are also doing something innovative, creative, and interesting. A few examples of who could be, these independent entrepreneurs. Someone like Rami Ismail of Vlambeer. They've done award-winning games, really interesting, innovative products. But are making tons of money, and the games are selling well. And Rami, despite being an actual developer, is also a very cunning business person, very very savvy business person. Another example would be Nathan Vella from Cappy. Probably most famously did Sword and Sorcery, more recently Super Time Force, and also the co-founder and partner of Indie Fund. So very business-minded, running a successful studio up in Toronto, about 20-25 people. Also a very cunning business person, but no one would question that the games they're producing are artful and innovative and meaningful. Another example, Genova Chen, famous creator of Journey as well as Flow and Flower. Also very smart business people. The team, essentially had a 3-project deal with Sony coming out of school, and also I think last year raised 5 or 6 million of VC money. So really doing some of the most innovative games in the marketplace, but doing that in the context of the market, generating revenue and being successful business. And of course, Tim Schafer, I would put in that same sort of category of independent entrepreneur. And so, some of the sort of traps or things to watch out for, and we see this in the teams that we do due diligence on that come to pitch us, and I'll kind of go through some of these things. And one of them is the lack of vision. Right, we have teams that come in that are solely focused on creating the project they're working on right now, and they have no sense of a roadmap. They have no sense of what kind of culture they want to create as a company, or what type of styles of games or technology they want to work with. They have no real vision in what they're doing as a company. They're just sort of heads down on the immediate project, on the immediate fires that have to go out. And as an investor, and as if you've been in the room today, you hear time and time again that people are investing in, the long-term potential of the company. They want to see growth. They want to see long-term potential, and that takes a certain vision. And so, if you're looking to get investment, if you're looking to sort of be an entrepreneur, you do have to think about that vision. A related concept is what I call scaffolding. Which is the things you're doing on any particular game are going to enable you to make the next game better and faster. And so this could be a lot of things. This could be, brand building. It could be the people you hire, how you train them, the tools you use, the technologies you build. Should be scaffolding to make each subsequent project better and faster. And so, for example, when we see a team come in and they say, well, the game we're working on right now is mobile, free-to-play, using Unity, and it's ninjas or whatever. Oh, but the next game we're going to use Unreal, and it's going to be Steam and VR, and it's robots, and it's completely unrelated, using different tools and technologies, different business models and expertise. The design skills are completely different. Essentially they're starting from scratch on each project, as opposed to taking what they did on the previous project and making the next one better and easier. And you can't be planning to have that scaffolding if you don't have the vision, right? You need the vision, you need a roadmap to know that, well, here's, game 3 is going to look like this, so we have to, which tools are we going to use, what kind of people are we going to hire, which technology do we implement, so that, we're kind of on that path. And actually, one of the sort of trick questions we ask teams often in interviews is, what does game 3 look like? And if they don't know how to answer that because they've never thought that far ahead, one, that does raise the flag that they're lacking a certain amount of vision, and also then that how are they building or layering that scaffolding. Another element is a question of ambition, and this one's a bit of a weird one in that some indies are quite good in realizing the limits of their resources. And so they will scope a project and propose a project, within their limits. And that's actually a nice thing to see. It's like, well, hey, we're 3 people, so this is the amount of time we want to spend, so we're really kind of creating something of a certain limited scale. But it's hard as investors to get excited by that. Right? There is this sense that you want the team to be kind of pushing beyond just what they can create with their immediate resources, that with our funding, with our love and attention and support, that together we can work towards something greater. And so I think if you're going into investor meetings, and again we sort of heard it earlier today in other sessions, if you're not shooting for the stars, if you're not kind of aiming something with ambition, it's hard for investors to really get behind you and or see why would they even bother investing. It's like, okay, well, just get that game done, then come see us for the next one that has more so that ambition. All right, another concept is the gas tank, in the sense that we do see a lot of developers who want a bit more money just to pay a few more months of bills. And someone had a related concept in one of the earlier presentations, in that there has to be the sense that if we're providing funding, it's going to get you to a meaningful milestone. And I see it more as a sort of a checkpoint rally as opposed to a complete track, in that the checkpoint may not be the release of the game or the sale of the company. It could mean just the next sort of major milestone that enables you to get the next round of funding, or to line up your Kickstarter, or to do your soft launch, or whatever the case may be. But there has to be a meaningful milestone that you're working towards. And this notion of just sort of scrambling to get a couple of more months of cash flow in so you can pay your employees a couple of more months, just to stay alive, is not a meaningful milestone or a meaningful target in and of itself. And as investors, you want to know what's the use of the funds going to be, what checkpoint or what milestone does that get you to, and you need to be conscious of that, when you're talking to investors and potential partners, and not just sort of adding a little bit of gas in the gas tank and then you sort of end on the track halfway to the finish line, or halfway to the checkpoint. Another one is pitching. We heard this quite a bit today. There's obviously a whole workshop to be done on pitching. The important thing to remember is that you're always pitching, and you shouldn't necessarily think of it purely as, I get up on stage to convince someone to give me money, right? There's a notion of, you and everyone on the team has to be able to articulate what the vision of the company is, what you're doing, what the project is about, why it's special, and you have to be able to do that in a context of a sort of a performative pitch on a stage, but you also have to be able to do that 90 seconds, in the elevator or at a networking event. And it's not just the CEO, it's not just the leader. Everyone on the team has to be able to do that, because you never know who anyone on the team is going to bump into, at an event or a cocktail or whatever. And it's not just about winning the investors, it's also about, and someone mentioned it earlier, about sort of inspiring the team, inspiring new team members, inspiring publishers or the platform partners to get involved, the press to pay attention. Really, it's every sort of other player in the ecosystem has to want to listen to what you have to say. And if you suck at pitching, you're just not going to do a good job of that, and your company and your project is going to suffer because of it. So really a fundamental skill in being an entrepreneur, not just for the leader, but also for the whole team. The next one is the lawyers. They're the lawyers in the room. I always think of the Half-Life when I think of lawyers, but engaging the professionals. So accountants, tax specialists, lawyers, proper lawyers that have experience either in games or fundraising and startups and so on. Absolutely necessary to engage those people. And it's difficult sometimes because as a startup, you don't necessarily have the resources to pay for those types of professionals, but it's absolutely critical. And it's a concern on the investor side if you don't have a habit of engaging with those kinds of professionals, right? It's easy for us to close a deal fast if you're just looking at the contracts quick and signing it because you're desperate to get the money, but it's actually a red flag for us. We want you to take the time to put it in front of your lawyer, go through to make sure you understand what you're signing and so on, because we want to make sure you're doing that as habit in terms of every other contract you sign, and just in terms of the diligence or rigor you have in running your business. So definitely want to engage the professionals. All right, and then last but not least, in terms of some of these concepts, is the sniff test. In that, it's amazing how many developers we meet who almost tell us they would not invest in themselves. Right? They're just waiting around for someone to hand them a big chunk of money so they can go off and do what they want and sort of live their dream. And they admit, oh, I would never give myself this money. That's crazy, or they wouldn't the whole notion of sweat equity and so on is critical. So there is an element of the sniff test just to make sure, would you actually give yourself money, or if you had it. So in terms of some non-starters, some deal breakers, I thought I would dive into just a couple of things to highlight related to team, project, market, and some minutia. We don't have too much time, so I won't go into too great detail. But just in terms of team stuff, and we've heard some of this already today, investors will almost never invest in teams of one, nor will they invest in a dictator with just a bunch of minions, right? Because that's not a team. That's just sort of a bunch of mercenaries. A lot of investors, us included, we're looking for some core competencies. From our point of view, it really is tech, design, and the business side. On the business side, we like to see both corporate business experience, so working with professionals, worrying about budgets and cash flow, all that kind of stuff, as well as the product side. So how's the game being perceived as a product, entering the market, at what price point, how's it going to gain an audience, et cetera, et cetera. And then I mentioned earlier the no studio sort of vision roadmap. And another one which, surprisingly, investors are pretty good at sniffing it out is the interpersonal drama. Investors don't want to get involved in teams that have drama. And we can see that often in interviews where you start asking questions and you get a sense of tension and uncertainty between the team members, and not everyone's committed at the same level, or they're disagreeing with certain elements of the strategy of the company. So you got to figure that stuff out and have those hard conversations before you go ask for investors to back you. So that's just a few sort of non-starters or red flags that come up on the team side. All right, in terms of the product stuff, this is implied in terms of my definition of what it means to be an independent entrepreneur. But if you're not working on your own stuff, that's a non-starter, right? You have to be working on your own IP that you own and control, that has that potential to break out. Obviously, you need to be cognizant of tech and platform timing issues. Obviously, so right now we're all sort of playing with the VR timing, and do you invest in VR? Do you wait? And and you see that too with new console launches and so on. This notion of scaffolding I mentioned before, right? The vision has to be in place. You have to be building the scaffolding. So we get the sense that if we invest now, there'll be a certain amount of acceleration or momentum building from project to project. And then amazingly, no real understanding of the resources needed to close a project. And I think it was Paul Hayden from LVP said it earlier today, where they get so many pitch decks that don't actually ask for a specific number of money, right? Which then tells us that you don't really know how much money you need to make the game, which probably also means you don't know how long it's going to take you to make the game. And we get a lot of pitches which are, well, it feels like I want to launch it next summer, so yeah, I guess I'll launch it next summer. And they don't have a proper production schedule. They don't have it properly budgeted. They haven't done sort of proper analysis and understanding the release or launch windows and this kind of stuff. So, if you're going to get in front of investors, you really have to understand the resources you need, the time it's going to take, et cetera. Some market stuff, really niche elements and an inherently limited audience, or conversely, no clue on sales potential. I'm not particularly huge on sales forecasts. A lot of that stuff that you're just pulling from your butt, but much more so in terms of comparables. Looking at similar games, similar styles. What have they done on different platforms? How many units have they moved? How does your game compare to those? And sort of understanding, where you might fit relative to those other games. Big red flag: no marketing or community development plan. And we end up working quite extensively with a lot of our teams on that. And then, as I mentioned, competitive analysis. It's amazing how many teams don't actually look at the marketplace and see which games are similar to theirs that they'd be competing against. It's super, super critical. Just some minutia. Messy cap tables scare investors, right? If you've given all these equity shares and options and bits and pieces to aunts and uncles and each of your team members, and it just starts getting complicated. It prevents us from seeing clearly how we slot in. And related, as investors, you want to know that when you put money in, that the co-founders are still owning the majority of the company, so that they feel like it's still their company and they're sufficiently motivated. So if the cap table is very messy and the co-founders are getting overly diluted, that's definitely a concern to investors. And then contract complications. We see this a lot with indies, where they're making revenue share promises, or they're signing contracts with agents that kind of abuse them and are taking a huge chunk of revenue, or are limiting their potential to sign certain publishing deals. Again, it's hard then for investors to come in when it's very, very messy in that way. All right, a couple. I think venture deals was already mentioned this morning, but if you are looking to go down the venture side, you absolutely must read. Venture deals will be the best $50 you spend. And Art of the Start is just a nice sort of overall book on startups and entrepreneurship and pitching and the whole sort of investor and entrepreneur relationship. I mean, there's a ton of books on this, but I find that one is a nice kind of overview. And so, just in conclusion, there is definitely a tension that we see between being this kind of starving artist versus getting paid. And I think there's more and more examples where meaningful, innovative work can be done, but it can be done in the context of commercial viability. And as investors, as Execution Labs, we want to enable that to happen. We want to back those entrepreneurs. We want to help them succeed, and we don't want them to starve. Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes for questions. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you feel about the indie that does a crowdfunding?
Yeah, I mean, crowdfunding is great if you can run a successful campaign. I mean, it serves both as putting cash in the team's pockets as well as does market validation. We've had teams that have done successful Kickstarter campaigns before coming to us. And as investors, that's certainly encouraging to see that has already happened. And at the same time, we've worked with our teams to prepare Kickstarter campaigns. So we've already invested in them, and then it just makes sense from their roadmap to do a Kickstarter for the upcoming game. And so we'll actually help them on that. So we're big supporters of crowdfunding. It's super hard, and not every, you don't just go to Kickstarter and then the dollar bills rain on you. It's a lot of work. So yeah. We like it. It's very compatible with what we do. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. How big are your funding investments in general, like the range?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't spend much time going into the specifics of how we work, but you can go to executionlabs.com and we're super transparent. All the deal terms and everything is listed up there in great detail. But just to say, we have the early stage accelerator, which is it's a fixed program, sort of like a Y Combinator for games style of program, and it's a $50,000 seed investment plus all of the mentorship and operational support and connections. And then we have a slightly later stage fund, which we call the finishing fund, which is there to help teams close a project and get it out the door, and that can range from $100,000 to or $300,000. But yeah, we're still in this sort of seed early stage. We're not doing millions of dollar growth fund investments.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And all that is up on the website. Yeah. Any other questions? No. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the show.